What's up everybody, my name is Frank Davalos and today we're going to be talking about my favorite digital camera of all time, the Leica Q2 Monochrome. So before we kind of get started into talking about this camera, I figured that I should just quickly say I have COVID at the moment and I'm locked away in this room. Why not make a video about my favorite camera of all time? I'm incredibly bored. This room is like a sauna. It is incredibly hot. It's the middle of summer here in Canada. And yeah, I'm currently positive for COVID. So I figured I'd make this video to just talk about maybe my favorite camera of all time, definitely my favorite digital camera of all time. It is the Leica Q2 Monochrome, and I just want to kind of touch on a few quick reasons why I love it, and then maybe help you decide whether or not it's something for you, or if you're interested perhaps in the color camera, the Q2, or a different camera altogether. So the number one thing that I think everybody has sort of wrestled with in terms of whether or not they're going to pick up the Q2 or the Q2 monochrome or any monochrome camera for that matter, is do I really need color? For me, it was kind of a no-brainer, basically because I shoot 95% black and white anyways. And so for me, it wasn't really an issue. And I really found that the Q2M had a lot of things for me to gain as a photographer that other cameras simply just don't have. And I know that for other people, losing color is kind of a deal breaker, and that's fine. This video is not necessarily for those people. I think this is for the people that are maybe on the fence about, like, do I really need color? And can I get away with just getting a Q2 and then shooting it mostly in black and white? And the answer, I guess, to that is, yeah, I think that you could just buy a Q2, you know, switch it to black and white mode and shoot that way, and you would be pretty much happy. I think that that camera also produces very nice black and white images. The debate that I always get into with people when we talk about these kinds of things is you don't really understand what it is you're missing with the Q2 monochrome until you actually shoot it, until you actually use it, until you compare it to the other cameras that you have. And it's really only then where it's almost like you can never go back once you shoot the Q2M. So I would just say that if you're really on the fence, try to rent one, see if you like it. You could even rent a Q2 and see if you like that and compare the two. But I would say that, like, I obviously didn't have the luxury of being able to rent it because I live in a small city in Canada and we just don't have those rental opportunities here. Not a lot of Leica shooters where I'm from. And so for me personally, I had to buy it. And so I bought it. I wasn't planning on keeping it. I shot with it and then it just kind of blew my mind. If this is just a personal camera, I think you can produce some of your best images with this black and white only camera. Let's get into some of the reasons why I think this camera separates itself from other cameras, especially cameras like the Q2 or any kind of color sensor camera. And there are some amazing color sensor cameras out there, you know, today in 2022 is when I'm making this video. So number one, for sure, and you've heard it before probably if you've been on sort of a rabbit hole of watching videos about the Q2 monochrome, this thing can literally see in the dark, and it's incredibly unbelievable, you know, how far you can push this camera. And I kind of had really high expectations when I got it, and one of the first images I took was of my daughter in her, like, pretty much pitch black room. I couldn't believe just like the detail that I got out of, you know, a camera set at that ISO. It just, I had never had an experience like that before. You know, I come from Sony A7 R3, A7 IV, where the dynamic range is obviously very good and it's an incredible camera, but it isn't the level of a monochrome sensor. The second kind of thing I think that this camera does well that other cameras just don't do quite as well is just image sharpness and resolution. I think that it really takes full advantage of this amazing 28mm Summilux lens. And while I have used the Q before, I have also used the Q2 before, And both of those cameras are amazing, and I'm not trying to deter anybody from buying those cameras. If that's the right choice for you, then definitely do it. But having had experience with both of those cameras, this camera is better at everything than that camera is, other than taking color photos. It gives you like a medium format vibe. There's some portraits that I've taken that I can't tell the difference between this camera and like something like my RB67 or like a medium format sensor. I know for a fact that the Q2 doesn't give you that level of image quality. I definitely know that the Q certainly doesn't either. If I'm being honest, both of those cameras, it's kind of all you need. But this just gives you that extra if you want it. Where it stands today, I really feel like there is no camera in the world, no full frame sensor camera in the world that can outperform this camera. Once you see the benefits that you get from using this camera, your desire to want to shoot in color is deeply outweighed by all of the good things that you get from using the Leica Q2M. One of the things that I actually do use that I've seen other people say that they don't use are the crop modes. I actually do use them up to the 50mm crop mode. I think that they're perfectly usable at 35, and I think it gives you basically the ability to have a camera that's a 35mm camera if you want it. Some people might disagree with me on that, but there's enough megapixels, and the difference in depth of field between 28mm and 35mm isn't, something that is super noticeable, I would say. So I really do think that you can use this camera in 35mm mode and get away with it and have perfectly beautiful prints, perfectly beautiful and usable images. And even at 50, I've taken some beautiful 50mm images that I think are perfectly usable. You could easily print them. There's enough megapixels. And I really just do think that the crop modes, especially with this camera and probably with the Q2, I'm sure that you could definitely use the 35mm crop mode with the Q2. But I think the fact that the monochrome sensor really allows you to sort of get every single pixel out of the image that the Summilux conveys to the sensor. I think that it really allows you to use the crop modes with little to no sacrifice at all. One thing that I actually really love about this camera that people don't really necessarily point to as much is the viewfinder of this camera and how much better it is than the Leica Q that I used to have. That was the first thing that I noticed, was this OLED viewfinder is just amazing. Like, I think it might be the best viewfinder I've ever used out of any camera ever, period. It's just beautiful to look through. And I love that you just see the image in black and white. It's huge. You can just see it perfectly crystal clear. It's just incredible. This camera has been with me for about the past 6 months. And in that time, it has been my main camera that I've used for shooting everything with my family and, going out on outings or whatever. And it really is. So it's sort of the camera that I sort of define my work by at this point. Once you use this camera, you understand. You get it. The tonality of the black and white, the way the light transitions from whites to middle grays to blacks, is by far the most amazing experience you can have shooting black and white in a digital format. And so no camera is perfect, and I just kind of want to talk about maybe a couple of things that I would like to see improved in the next iteration of this monochrome Q2, maybe the Q3 monochrome or whatever. It has face focus or face autofocus, whatever it's called, but it's just not super reliable, and so I don't find myself ever really using it. Maybe I am comparing it a bit to some of the flagship cameras that I have from other brands. I would just say in general, don't do that. But I also think that why have the face detect if it doesn't, work super good? Like, I never use it because I just can't trust it all the time. Fuji has the same problem. They have face eye detect. It doesn't work that well, so I don't even use it. I just end up using spot or field or whatever. Battery life, surprisingly, I don't find it that good, and you can make it so that you get sort of the most out of the battery. I took this recently on a trip to Calgary, and I forgot my charger. I wasn't able to charge this the whole week that I was in Calgary, so I really had to figure out how to conserve the battery. So one thing I did was just switch to viewfinder only mode, turned off Bluetooth, turned off auto review and things like that, and I did manage to make it last sort of the whole week, but I used it sparingly. But I think that the battery life is just okay. It's like, considering the cost of a battery, I think that like these batteries go for like, you know, $250 or something. I'll put the price right here just so you can see, and it is something to consider. Yeah, the battery price is crazy on these cameras, and so the fact that, you know, you can get away with one battery, but you know, it's not ideal because this camera doesn't even have USB-C charging, and that's another kind of gripe, area of improvement. I know that, you know, Leica has this whole minimalistic sort of thing, but the fact that you can't charge this via USB-C, it's incredibly inconvenient, especially when you consider the size of the charger. To just throw in a USB-C charger, I think would really eliminate me being annoyed of this camera a lot. And I know it's something that other people have asked for, and I think with the Q series, it's kind of going away from, you know, the Leica M heritage anyways. You know, it has autofocus and things like that. So why not just throw a USB-C charger if it's possible? It would make life so much easier, and it would make it even more bearable to just use one battery if you could USB-C charge. I don't think you'd necessarily need two batteries if it was super easy and convenient to charge, but the fact that you got to carry around a charger everywhere you go and always have that one battery charge, it almost kind of forces your hand to get a spare battery. And so that was one of my biggest, I think that's probably my biggest gripe about this camera, is no USB-C charging and the cost of the batteries, and the fact that the battery life isn't like anything crazy to write home about. Other than that, you know, I love the EVF. I love the viewfinder. I think that the ergonomics are perfect. One of the things that I really think that the new firmware provided to this camera is the ability to use highlight weighted metering. This thing, because it's a monochromatic sensor, it doesn't necessarily preserve the highlights as well as other cameras. I think Leica cameras in general don't do that, but especially the monochromatic sensors. If you kind of overexpose your highlighted areas, you essentially will lose that information. You're not going to be able to pull them back in post. And the fact that this camera now is able to meter for the highlights basically gives you kind of, you know, redundancy in that you're not going to lose any highlighted areas in your images, and you can always easily bring up shadow areas and your darks in post. The dynamic range of this camera is like, it blows my mind how good it is, but you just have to be aware that the highlights blow out easily and you can't kind of preserve them. Once they introduced that in the new firmware, that was kind of like every problem I ever had with this camera was solved, and now really it just came down to the battery and like not being able to USB-C charge. I know it's expensive. I know not everyone can, you know, dive into the Q2 system in general. The used market is bringing these prices down, and it'll only continue to go down once, you know, the Q3 comes out. And so it's just an option that I think everyone should consider, whether it's 2022, 2023. Like, the tech in this camera is literally future proof for years. Like, in 5 years, this camera is going to be gold. I feel so blessed to get to use this camera and to have some of my favorite memories of my kids captured on this camera. It's just, yeah, it really is. It really is a privilege, and I love this camera. So I hope that that helped some of you guys, you know, kind of decipher whether or not, you know, the Q2M might be for you. And I hope I didn't piss off, you know, some of the Q2 users. Like I said, that camera is amazing. I know it's amazing. I think that a lot of people buy that camera thinking that it's going to change their images. And I'm kind of just always weary about that in terms of managing expectations, because it's really about the experience of using the Leica Q2 cameras that I think you should focus on more so than the image qualities, because I really think that the image quality out of like any modern camera from like 2018 onward, especially if you consider higher megapixel cameras like the Sony A7R4 or whatever, you can match image quality at a significantly less price. But I would just say that that camera is amazing. The experience of using the Leica Q2 is incredible, and I'm not trying to deter you at all from that camera. It is a beautiful camera. Please don't get mad at me in the comments. This isn't designed to sort of, you know, make anyone feel bad about getting a Q2 or anything like that. This video I wanted to make specifically for people who were really interested in the Q2M and were having a tough time justifying spending that money on a camera that doesn't shoot color. And so if that's you, I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Or if you've used the Q2M in the past and maybe switched to the Q2, those are the types of the discussions I would love to have down below in the comments. Somebody who knows the Q2M, but if you've never shot the Q2M and you're mad, and you're just mad because I've said that I think it's better than the Q2, I mean, you can still comment below, but it's just probably not going to be a productive conversation because, like I said, and I will reiterate, I love the Q2, I love the Q, I love the Q2M. I love them all. I think they're all amazing cameras. I just really love the Q2 Monochrome. Thank you guys for watching the video. I hope you got something out of it, and I hope I convinced some people that the dark side is the right side. So thanks again. And I'd love it if you hit the subscribe button. I don't make a whole lot of videos. I'm not necessarily a YouTuber, but I do make videos about cameras and things that I love. And so there'll probably be more videos in the future, but I would love it if you subscribed. If not, thank you again for watching. You can follow me down below on all the socials or whatever. And thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you in the next one.